Cool. Hi guys, how we doing? So, obviously first kind of live Q&A with Harry.
Hi guys, how you doing?
So, obviously first one of the year, joint. So we're going to do a lot more kind of live Q&As each week with obviously myself, Harry. I'm going to get Joe to do some, Emerald and Mark as well. So we thought we'd pick kind of a topic to kind of talk about each week and kind of go through. So we've chosen nutrition for fat loss to start off with. So we thought it'd be a good one to start with in January, as most people are kind of on the weight loss journey, and kind of go from there. Obviously, we had a few questions today, and we're going to cover that. Guys, if you are joining us, please say hello in the comments box, and if you have got any questions, obviously throw them in the comments box, and we will answer them as we go through. We just wait for a few people to kind of get involved. So if you are joining us, say hello. Hi guys, that'd be good, and we'll kind of get started. So. One of the things we kind of wanted to talk about today is obviously carbohydrates. So obviously Jade's question was on carbohydrate groups. I'm going to pass you over to Harry to kind of get you started on that and how that kind of affects training. Is there certain times and things that work well with that? So Harry, if you want to take us away with that.
Yeah, hi guys. So I just wanted to first touch on about the carb groups you get in. So initially you've got your simple carbs. These are going to be things like your sugars. So your simple sugars, so you're going to get these things from, so sucrose is from like your table sugars, you get your fructose, which is from your fruits, and lactose, which is from your milks. So these are also things that you can utilise when training, but obviously they need to be worked in moderation, because if you're going to have lots and lots of sugars, this is going to do something to insulin. So when you take on sugars in the body, this is going to spike your insulin level quite high, especially these simple sugars. So when insulin is spiked very high, this causes it to be stored as fat, especially from these types. So, I mean, simple sugars from stuff like the fruits and your sweets and stuff, they need to be taken moderately, or essentially when you're going to have them keep it spiked so high, your glycogen is going to be stored as fat. Do you want to go with complex carbs?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so complex carbohydrates, obviously they're things like your maltodextrin, a lot more kind of slow release carbohydrates, so starchy carbohydrates as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of carbohydrates, timings as well in a little minute. So, if you look at your kind of stored carbohydrates and things and complex carbs, they are slow release. They take a lot longer to kind of digest in your body, and also, they obviously contain a lot more fibre and things like that, so they are a lot slower digesting. In terms of carbohydrates before exercise and how that affects your performance, it helps with your recovery. So it's a popular misconception that you only need your carbs kind of if you're engaging in long activity of like endurance exercise and things. In reality, carbs also enhance kind of shorter term high intensity training as well. So carbohydrates pre-training will help your performance and obviously your training sessions. So pre-workout meal, I recommend you kind of ingest carbohydrates an hour and a half to 2 hours before, so you have got fuel there to kind of help you with performance. Not only that, it preserves your kind of muscle and liver glycogen. So obviously when you're training, you deplete your glycogen during those training sessions, so it is beneficial for you to get your carbohydrates in before you train. Another point is that it kind of stimulates the release of insulin. So when combined with protein, it improves your kind of protein synthesis and prevents protein breakdown when you're kind of having your carbohydrates there. So that's the benefit kind of pre-exercise. Also during exercise, so this is one point I thought I'd bring up, carbohydrates during exercise and how that kind of improves your training. Obviously it provides an immediate source of fuel. Okay, so if you're having carbs during your training sessions, you want kind of quick release stuff. A lot of people drink dextrose and things like that during training sessions, and if you're doing long endurance stuff like cycling, then drinking a carbohydrate drink during that will be really, really useful. So it will benefit you in that sense. In terms of performance as well, it will improve you massively and facilitate a kind of faster recovery, so it's worth kind of having that. Big kind of misconception as well, is it kind of beneficial in long endurance athletes? Personally, if you're training for more than an hour, then I think ingesting a kind of carbohydrate during that time will be kind of beneficial to you in your performance. Obviously I know Harry and I have both kind of done long endurance sessions in terms of strength training and things like that, and we have previously used carbohydrates during our sessions, especially you when you were dieting, weren't you, as well?
Yeah, so intra-workout carbs, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously when Harry was dieting down for his competition, he was using intra-workout carbs, not only for the kind of performance benefits to keep him kind of feel full during his workouts and fueled, but also to keep his blood sugar levels constant, which is something we will kind of get onto as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens during your workouts when kind of, with carbohydrates and things. So obviously depleting the glycogen, and during the workout your muscles are working hard, and obviously using glucose, so you can deplete that. And when that happens and it gets really low, your body releases cortisol, and we all know about kind of cortisol and the kind of catabolic effects of that. So it eats up muscle tissue, and for protein and convert it into glucose is kind of bad and beneficial in that sense. So making sure you're getting your carbohydrates in after your workouts is really good. So simple carbohydrates, personally, I'd recommend you have them either first thing in the morning, because obviously you haven't ingested a meal within kind of 8 or 9 hours. So that's when your body's going to be kind of, depleted in terms of glycogen. So simple sugars and carbohydrates in the morning. So, maybe some berries on your porridge, things like that. And then also kind of post-workout, things like banana, berries and things, again, are really kind of good. Cool. Beth Timball, carbs late at night after 8 p.m. usually considered bad. True or false? False. Okay, so, like we just said, simple carbohydrates like your quick release stuff would be better to have either first thing in the morning or after your workout. But the actual kind of complex carbohydrates, there's nothing wrong with having them late at night. In terms of, if you are going to train first thing in the morning, then having a complex carbohydrate in the evening meal, so your last meal before you go to bed, even like oats and things, just so when you train in the morning you have got that glycogen stored and you have got glucose in the muscle, is probably going to be quite beneficial. So I hope that kind of covers your kind of questions on carbohydrates and things like that.
Got a message here from Kate Bentley to me. She says, have you got any points or tips when dieting, food to stay away from and things you can use to stay on track? That's a good question. So food to stay away from when you're dieting is you want to stay away from things, you want to have things that are actually going to have a benefit to your body. So like we mentioned before, it's like high GI carbs, so things like your cakes and your chocolates and that. Yes, it's going to give you like that initial release of energy, but it's probably not going to benefit you along the long run, such as things like oats, sweet potatoes, rices, beans. These are things that like going to give you a lot of energy. They're more complex carbs, they're going to give you energy for a lot longer throughout the day. Things that aren't going to benefit your body as well, so like things like the white breads, the rices, pastas. So if you choose your carbs wisely, so have things like the whole meal. This is again like the complex carbs going to help you keep energy throughout the day. And tips are you stay on track, so have weekly targets. So it's good seeing the long picture. For example, if you want to diet down for maybe 8 weeks, like Dave is doing an 8-week transformation challenge, just break it down to week by week in small fragments. There's no point trying to be like, I'm not ready now, I'm not good enough. It doesn't make a difference. Just give yourself little weekly targets, and if you hit them, it's going to give you a lot more satisfaction. I also like to take progress photos as well, because when you are dieting, when you are hungry, sometimes it's quite hard to see the progress. All you see is maybe you don't look good enough. But if you see a progress photo from 1 week to the next week and you see you are improving, it's like, okay, I am making progress. So then you can keep motivating yourself on that way.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, what I use obviously with the 8-week transformation challenge is we are using kind of progress photos, which being uploaded on a weekly basis. So, seeing that change in yourself is really good. And just being accountable for it, guys. So tracking your nutrition, things like that is really important. But, if you're taking measurements and seeing the progress, then it's going to motivate you and kind of keep you on track in that sense. Cool. So we got another question from Charlie Hitchcock. Thoughts on using if it fits your macros approach in comparison to a more traditional approach for fat loss? Okay, cool. So obviously, if it fits your macros, so let's talk about macronutrients as a kind of start off, just to summarise that for people that don't know. So obviously macronutrients, we're talking about your kind of total calories and then broken down into your protein, carbs and fats, okay? So I myself am now dieting down, so I have calories set at 2,600, okay? I'm then looking at about 40% protein, 40% carbohydrate and then 20% fat. So fats, I'm having 60 grams of fat. Carbs somewhere about 280, 270, and then protein again about the same as that. So for my diet, I am sticking to mainly whole foods, but also I'm having a few other bits and pieces in there. So I'm having dark chocolate on a daily basis. I am actually having Haribo post-workout, so I'm having 50 grams of Haribo post-workout, which is great, you know, I'm loving that. But also, you know, as long as you're sticking to your kind of calories and macronutrients, then I'd say stick with an 80-20 rule. So 80% of your kind of nutrition should be coming from whole foods, and then 20% of other bits and pieces. But as long as you're fitting your macros, then I don't see a problem with it. Obviously, you know, if you're looking to lose weight, you've got to be in a calorie deficit. So, you know, as long as that deficit's there, you're going to lose weight regardless. But for me, I like to keep my protein content high, as this maintains as much muscle mass as possible. And, you know, same with you, Harry. I expect when you were dieting, your protein was pretty high. Yeah. And go from there. Cool. Right, we've got some more questions, guys. So Harry, take us away.
So there's one from Liam Thompson 4. So he says, I've just begun my cutting phase for holiday coming up soon. I want to maintain as much muscle tissue as I can whilst dropping my body fat percentage. My question is, will I benefit more from steady state cardio or HIIT based workouts, and why? Cheers. Right, so that's a good question. So when doing dieting down as well, obviously cardio for a lot of people is a necessity. Not a lot of people can get away with doing no cardio. It's very hard to get your diet right, so you don't have to do any. But it also just speeds up the process. So there are good, obviously, pros and cons for HIIT and for steady state. Problem with HIIT is it is actually very taxing on your central nervous system. So if you're going to do a very heavy workout, for example, a leg workout, you're doing like lots of heavy lifts, and then you're going to go and do that, especially if you're in a calorie deficit anyway, it's going to really stress your systems. And is it worth it? Is it you're going to get the benefits just from that, or maybe just take a little bit longer, do the steady state cardio, but it's not gonna, you're going to burn the calories, it just takes a little bit longer. And as well, after strength workouts, it might be, so it's too stressing. And so when with steady state as well, I think a lot of it comes down to what you prefer. So if you absolutely hate HIIT training, which I gonna lie, it's horrible. People that say they can do HIIT for 20 minutes straight, you're probably not doing it right. If you really hate it that much, maybe just do a little bit more often, do steady state. Or if you like both of them, just pick where you do it. So for example, if you maybe have a slightly lighter day, doing like maybe an upper body workout, then maybe do the HIIT, and then you do the heavy lower lifts, or like if you're doing deadlifts, squats, things like that, then try and do your HIIT. So you just maybe just have 2 HIIT workouts, 3 steady state.
As well with kind of like HIIT training and a lot of sprint work, you're going to deplete your glycogen very, very quickly. You know, and if you are in a calorie deficit, and obviously you want to maintain your kind of strength training and things like that, then you want to maintain as much glycogen as possible, because during that deficit you are going to feel depleted, you're going to feel flat, you're going to feel weak. So when you are dieting down, you know, I tend to avoid high intensity training. Also, you know, when I coached Emerald in the summer and got her extremely lean, I cut out her high intensity training all the time, which she absolutely hated. So she hated the fact that I dropped all her HIIT training out of her, training sessions, and that was only because she was in such a calorie deficit. There was no way she'd be able to maintain her strength training and other things when performing a workout. So that's what I personally do. I like to use LISS. So at the moment I'm only doing 20 minutes of LISS a day, and to be honest I'll probably only up that to about 45 minutes maximum, just because I am going to create that deficit more through my kind of calories rather than the kind of intensity of the workouts and the other things as well. So we've got a couple of quick questions we'll just fire through. Holly Jade, love it. What's your thoughts on naked smoothies? Are they good for fat loss, or is it just full of sugars? Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of a moan on this one, because, to be honest, there is no food that is good for fat loss, alright? And there's no food that's actually bad for fat loss either, isn't that right, Harry? Yeah, okay, it's more about the calories, okay? There's no food that's going to magically get you abs, there's no exercise going to magically get you abs. It's all about nutrition and keeping yourself in a calorie deficit. You know, if you want to lose body fat and get lean, you've just got to maintain a calorie deficit, and that body fat will come off you, and then you will get lean. There's no certain food that's going to benefit you in any way, shape or form, alright? In terms of naked smoothies, are they good, or is it full of sugar? Obviously you're going to get a lot of vitamins and minerals from there, but to be honest, it's probably going to be quite a high calorie drink, so I tend to avoid stuff like that if I were you. We got another question from Beth Timbrell. Harry, you want to take us up on that one?
Newly anemic and B12 deficient. What foods are good to keep fatigue levels low in the B's high? Ooh.
Steak. Let's get some steak in there, alright? So, red meat, okay? Full of kind of vitamin B12. Also, you know, if you look at bananas, things like that, they're really high in vitamin B12. So, you know, get your steak in, get your spinach in there. Bananas, again, you know, really, really good.
Any red meat
to
for
do
that matter,
that.
though, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Good one from Tash as well, which a lot of people always ask is, you usually see progress, as sometimes I don't see any change for ages, and it makes me give up. So this is something a lot of people find is they'll start a new diet and they want the changes straight away. Well, sometimes it just doesn't happen. For everyone, it is very different. Some people will see changes in a week, some will see in 3, some will see in a month. It's just dependent on you. I think a lot of people, when initially starting a new diet and starting doing a new training program, they often see quite a drop in weight rapid at the start, and then it will sort to plateau. Another way you can do it is with progress pictures, is take body measurements, because a lot of people get obsessed with the scales and they'll keep weighing themselves, and if the scales don't go down, they get really upset about it. But in reality, sometimes you just look at yourself in the mirror and you look physically better. So maybe take body measurements as well as progress photos, and not only that, get someone else who sees you every day to physically look at you, because you see very different to what someone else will see. So maybe get a friend, get your parents, someone that to look at you and then tell you what they see, because quite often you see yourself a lot worse now. You see all your flaws, you don't see any of the good parts you have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, it's really hard to see it yourself. It's really hard when you're dieting down to see that kind of change. Other people will see it before you, and that's completely natural. I think personally it takes about 6 weeks for you to see change in yourself. People will probably notice it within about 4 weeks, but for yourself to see it, take about 6 weeks. So it does take time and consistency. But yeah, if you're taking measurements, progress photos, weighing yourself and things like that, that's brilliant, because actually when you're seeing those numbers go down in terms of your weight, that's going to motivate you as well. Obviously clothes as well, how clothes fit, how clothes feel, things like that are going to be really important when you are trying to lose weight. And if you feel good from the inside, which I think nutrition plays a big part in. If you morning Lizzie, nice, I'm glad you're in Sydney, sorry for some. When you are eating well and good whole foods, you feel good from the inside out. I'm a big fan of kind of positive mindset, and I think if you're eating well, it makes you feel good from the inside out, and I think that's really important. I don't know what your kind of diet's like, Harry. When you eat rubbish food, you feel rubbish or
terrible?
Yeah, all right.
It's good for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I had a few days off diet when I was at Christmas, and to be honest, I felt horrendous. It made me feel real kind of sluggish, lethargic. Mentally, I was in quite a negative atmosphere as well, and just felt a bit like bleh. So when you're eating good, clean foods that are nutritious and you're getting the right nutrition in, you're going to feel good. So that's important.
So a good one from Alice Klein as well, which is quite a lot of people also ask, is what should you do if you have a bad weekend, a few days off food? See, what quite a lot of people do, for example, especially over the Christmas period, we have like the whole weekend essentially, is they eat lots and lots of food, and then it comes to the Monday, they go back to the gym, and they think they've put on all this weight, and then they suddenly just drop out all of the food. They think they shouldn't eat anything, drop out all the carbs, and essentially just crash diet to try and get rid of it. When I think that's probably one of the worst things you could do, is you want your body to be able to tolerate you. If you have, for example, a cheat meal, your body to be able to tolerate that. So what I would say is maybe you can drop the carbs slightly for a few days. So if you know how much you've gone over the last few days, maybe just take it out a little bit. I would say almost let your body just adapt and get over what you've learned. Once you go back to your normal diet and normal training as well, it should only take a few days to come off. I mean, you're not going to get really fat in a day or two, but you're not going to get really lean in a day or two as well. You just have to just sort of play it by ear, think, okay, maybe I'll just look a bit watery for the next few days, but it will come off. Where the worst thing you can do is just crash diet and take out all of your carbs.
Cool. Good point, like that. Okay, Danny Hamby. Is it true that cheat meals assist your metabolism when you eat clean the rest of the week and follow a training plan? Awesome. I love that question because I actually played around with this myself, obviously, when I was in my last prep. And the answer is yes. Okay, we're going to talk about something called leptin. All right. So when you're training, you're in a constantly calorie deficit. There's a hormone called leptin, and that actually helps. With your metabolism and stimulate metabolism. Obviously, when you're in a constant deficit, those leptin levels do drop down. So having a cheat meal does actually stimulate your leptin levels and get those back up. So on the Sunday, I was having like a cheat or refeed, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And by the end of the week, when I was doing my cardio, my heart rate was actually a lot lower towards the end of the week during my cardio sessions than it was at the start of the week. And I was burning less calories for doing exactly the same amount of cardio and exactly the same amount of time. And it was kind of like, well, what's going on? I don't really understand it. I'd had my refeed on the Sunday, and the next morning, the calories I'd be burning would be a lot higher because my metabolism was firing, all cylinders firing. I was burning a lot more calories during the same session. So it's, yes, a cheat meal is beneficial, but this is where you've got to be a little bit careful, okay? So cheat meals and refeeds are two different things, yeah? So a refeed is where you're obviously upping your carbohydrates on one day of the week. So where you're depleting your glycogen, where you're in that calorie deficit, you're going to be using up all that glycogen stored in the muscle, which comes from your carbohydrates. And then what you want to do on, say, a Sunday is up your carbohydrates. From there, I'd say 100 grams of net carbohydrates will help stimulate that. And then if females, probably an extra 50 to 60 grams of net carbohydrates will help stimulate that as well. So I prefer a refeed approach rather than cheat meal. But a cheat meal is more for your sanity as well. As long as you're staying within roughly around your calories. So if you go up an extra couple hundred calories, that's fine. But what I'd probably do is have your normal meals throughout the day, knock out, say, the last 2 meals, so a snack and like a meal or something, just to make way for those extra calories, and then have a cheat meal on the kind of, you know, Sunday evening or Saturday evening, whatever you want to do. Obviously try and avoid alcohol, because that won't actually help with your fat loss goals in any way, shape or form. But, you know, it would be beneficial in terms of your leptin levels, you know. But like I said, don't go crazy. A lot of people go cheat day, I'm going to eat as much crap as I want, and they ruin the whole calorie deficit in one day or one sitting, okay? So just be a little bit wary of that when you are doing it. All right. Any more questions, Harry? What we've got?
So we've got one from Bethan as well. So she put, what types of stretching and things do you recommend to warm up or cool down before after to ensure good mobility and flexibility? Oh, that's quite a good one. So I would recommend pre-work, so before you work out, instead of trying stretching, just try to do more mobility stuff. Just because if you're going to do a sit and do long stretching, it can often, and then go do strength training, it can shut down the neuromuscular system. So when stuff like activation stuff, so this is stuff if any of you see me in the gym, this is stuff I do a lot before I train. And then there's plenty of exercise you can do depending on legs, hips, ankles, shoulders, depending on what you're training, maybe like utilise it around that. And then also maybe after your training, then just do, for example, if you have a particular tight area, like quite often people have problems with their hamstrings, then stretch your hamstrings off, just so you maybe like intimate stretch, lost it now, do stretch your hamstrings. And then this could work better as well. The problem is doing it before, if you turn off your neuromuscular system, and then the strength is just not going to be there, which it was.
Cool, awesome. So Joe made a valid point as well, Joe question that he brought up. Should you always cheat on a regular basis or only when strength levels drop or fat loss slows? And yes, I completely agree with that. So obviously I've started my dieting and cut now, and I am not going to have a cheat meal until I feel that I kind of need to. You know, so when my strength really stops dropping, fat loss slows, etc., then I will incorporate a treat. To be honest, I'm going to try and do 8 weeks straight, but if obviously my fat loss slows or strength drops, then I probably will incorporate some sort of cheat meal into that. So that's a really good point actually, so thanks Joe for bringing that up. Cool, so that's that question answered. What else have we got? Well, we're doing alright, cool. So we'll go on to a little bit about training then, when you are dieting down and when you are kind of, you know, doing your fat loss. Something I thought would be quite a valid point. So obviously when you are in a calorie deficit and you are losing weight, you will feel weaker. Obviously, you know, we just talked about glycogen and what happens there. So how are you going to train better and maintain and push yourself through that? So I thought it'd be quite a good one to cover. So you can increase your volume through other means such as reps, sets and the frequency, okay? So what I mean by that is if you're looking to do, you know, 8-week diet as such, something I'm doing with my 8-week transformation actually, we're periodizing our training. So this week we're going heavy. So it's week 1, you're going heavy on the exercises, and then as we progress into week 3 and 4, there's going to be a lot more volume, okay? So you're hitting like 15 to 20 reps of things, etc. So where you are actually depleting your glycogen, where your strength is actually dropping, you feel a bit weaker, we're going to up the intensity through volume and other means. So that is, you know, something that's quite useful, I thought. Also, looking at fat loss, is it, you know, in certain places, can you lose fat from certain places? You know, a lot of people think, I want to lose weight off my stomach, etc., back, wherever. It's an urban myth, okay? You cannot spot reduce fat loss, yeah? So, you know, if you want to get abs, unfortunately, you've just got to keep yourself in a calorie deficit until you start seeing some visible kind of ab definition and stuff. So I hope that kind of covers that point. There's a lot of people kind of ask that question, can I do a certain exercise to lose weight off my stomach? Unfortunately, that isn't the case, okay? You just got to maintain a calorie deficit and make sure the scales are continuing to move in the right direction. Cool, so we've got another couple of questions. Harry, take us away.
So, Winston Julius, how much cardio should you do when dieting? Right, okay. So, again, everyone is very different. Everyone loses fat at different rates. As Dave just mentioned as well, you can't spot fat. It comes off where it comes off from. So, it's dependent on how lean you want to get. And have you got a certain percentage maybe, or like when you're just visibly happy. But if you're going to do cardio every single day, that's absolutely fine. But it depends how much you need to do and how much your body needs. So, for example, Winston, I know, can lose fat quite quickly, so he might not have to do as much as other people who can lose fat very slowly. Myself, I don't do a massive amount of cardio. At the moment, I don't actually do any. But when I start to cut, I would probably keep it to around 30 minutes steady state in the mornings. I like to do my cardio in the morning. And then obviously I'll gradually keep upping that whilst reducing my carbs until I get to the point where I want to be. So it's just something you have to play around with. I would say if you've never really done much cardio before, start off with, if you like to do your morning cardio in the morning or in the evening, that's absolutely fine. Start off with steady state, maybe build yourself up to some hits, see if you like it. If you don't, that's fine. Carry on with a steady state. Start off with maybe 3 times a week, 30 minutes, and then just build it up from there and see how much you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's all dependent on your calorie deficit as well, guys. So how much cardio should you do when dieting? Obviously, you can create a deficit just from eating food, but that is quite hard. Most people these days have a sedentary job, so they're going to need to incorporate some cardio just to get that kind of calorie deficit to help them with weight loss. So it is completely dependent on you and how many calories you are on. So if you want to knock out food to lose weight, then that's absolutely fine. Obviously, cardio does stimulate, kind of fat metabolism, so it is worth incorporating into your kind of diet when you are looking to lose weight. So a couple of things to note there when you're doing that. We've got a few more questions, so we're just going to fire away. So question from Danny Hamby. What foods are the best for muscle recovery when training on a calorie-controlled eating plan? Train my legs for the first time on Sunday and still walking like a cowboy. Unfortunately, in terms of muscle recovery and what foods are best, there's no something specific. Obviously, like I said previously, use of carbohydrates post-workout is beneficial, and pre-workout as well. So make sure you've got your pre-workout carbohydrates in. So go for a complex carb, maybe pre, and then your simple sugar post-workout. So maybe some fruit, or like me, I use my Haribo and make it fit my macros, which is great, which I'm loving. In terms of that comes from mainly stretching, so recovery mainly I go stretching and actually moving as well. Unfortunately a lot of people sit at a desk all the time, so try and get yourself moving, as this will aid your recovery massively. So get on that. I've got another question from Craig. I'm really busy Mondays and Tuesdays and rarely get time to train, even though I'm quite active in my job. Should I eat as much as I do on training days? Okay, so Craig, obviously you're doing the 8-week transformation challenge. We have calculated your calories and nutrition plan based on what the information you've given us. So stick to it, all right? This is a thing that I personally like doing, is being consistent with it. So even on my rest days, I will be eating the same amount of calories, okay? So as long as you're keeping that calorie deficit, we've calculated your calories, etc., based on the information you've given us and how active you are. As long as you are keeping a calorie deficit, that's fine. I personally, will eat the same on my rest days. I don't know about you, Harry.
I eat the same rest days as well, yeah.
Exactly. So, use that as kind of, maybe a bit of a refeed. So obviously that'll just up your glycogen a little bit on that refeed day, or when you're not as active. So the next days you're probably going to feel stronger, and it's going to help with your training in that sense as well. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about kind of dropping your calories too much on your lower active days. Just keep it consistent, okay? Consistency is the key. If you stick to any plan that myself or Harry or anyone who goes at the time, I guarantee you, if you stick to it, you're going to get some serious results. And you can tell by the people who do stick to it that you see the results in them. When Emerald did a cut in the summer, she had 7 weeks, did not go literally off plan for the whole 7 weeks, and she looked amazing. Okay, so it shows what you can do in a short space of time. 7 weeks to 8 weeks, you can see a real big change in yourself. So, you know, if you really want a plan that's going to work, then we can provide that. And if you stick to it, it will work, okay?
This one from Jade as well. So her thoughts on carb cycling to aid fat loss. Are there benefits to this? So I've never actually tried carb cycling before. I don't know about you.
I haven't personally touched on it much.
So-
I did try actually a little bit once, but it wasn't to the extent that it's kind of done now. You know, what I would do personally is, you know, for my bigger lifting days, so on my leg session and my kind of pulling session, I would actually up my carbohydrates on those days. But on my kind of, you know, smaller group muscles like shoulders, arms, etc., then I'd actually have low carbohydrates on those days. But I wasn't trying to lose fat at that point. It was just for kind of performance benefits. So in terms of fat loss, would it work better personally?
I think it depends on you.
Yeah, I think again it's dependent on you and how sensitive you are to carbs. But at the end of the day, if over a week period you're getting the same amount of carbohydrates in as you would whether you were carb cycling or not, I don't think it personally matters. So again, I prefer the consistent approach rather than trying to fuck around with your carbs on different days and feeling like crap on some days. I stick to it and just be consistent with it, and that's just me being honest. I think if you want to, I think trouble is with fat loss and things, people try to overcomplicate things and think, oh, they got this amazing idea. I'm gonna deplete my carbs on one day and carb up on the other day. It doesn't fucking matter. If you've got your proteins, carbs, and fats, and you're doing that every single day, you're going to lose weight if you're in that calorie deficit. If you drop your carb outs on one day and then the next day you have a load more carbs, it's exactly the same, funnily enough. It's just you're feeling like rubbish on one day. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say as well, if you have any more questions, I know my brother Joe as well, he does do carb cycling as well, so I'm sure he'll be able to fire over some questions as well, as he actually does it himself, I believe, still. But it's just dependent on what you like. If you want to have some higher carb days, then have lower carb days. But I just find, it's good on the high carb day, then as soon as you go on the low carb day, the muscles that you're training on the low carb days, they're probably not going to get trained as well as the ones you're doing on the high carb days. So it's just that energy thing.
Agree.
So
definitely, obviously if you want to speak to Joe about that, I'm sure Joe's got a kind of take on carb cycling and what he feels. Obviously he's done it and he has done it for fat loss, etc. So I'm sure Joe will happily shed some light on carb cycling, as me and Harry just love carbohydrates too much to actually cut them out our diet. Cool. Right, I think we've covered quite a lot of questions, guys. If you have got anything else, then please do post it and we will answer them. If not, I think we're probably going to call it a night there, as we've done quite a lot. I don't know if you've got any other points, Harry?
I was just going to do as well. So 5 tips for successful dieting. These are just simple ones as well. So eat small, consistent meals throughout the day. Limit your processed foods. Stay nice and hydrated, so drinking plenty of water. Strategic with your carbs as well. So this has been like either your simple carbs or your complex carbs. Stick to more your complex carbs. Your sweet potato, your oats, your rices. These things are going to get the best energy and then the best calories for what you're having. And also make sure you're having lots of lean proteins as well. So your meats, your fish, your chicken, turkey, all of those. Make sure you're getting lots of those in, and you should be okay.
Cool, awesome. Okay, so we've just had a couple more questions in, guys. We'll just be online for another 5 minutes and then we'll call it a night. Winston Julius, how do you get motivated to train consistently and stick to a diet when dieting? Okay, cool, good question. I like that. So it's really simple. You got to make yourself accountable for it. If you want to lose weight, it comes down to how badly you want it. Okay, so be honest with yourself. If you are serious about getting results, then I highly recommend you track what you are eating. However, you may choose not to track your intake or not track certain times from time to time, and that's absolutely fine. But you need to understand that this may come with some consequences as your body tracks everything you consume, okay? So, make yourself accountable for things, write stuff down, use things like MyFitnessPal to put everything you're consuming in there, and then it makes you accountable. In terms of motivation, obviously stick to a plan. If you've got a coach like myself, Harry, we will set you a plan and we will set you calories and deficit to work around that plan. If you've got something to stick to, you're more likely to do it. Because if you follow a plan, you're going to get results. We spent a lot of time training, and all the other guys have as well. So they've got a high knowledge of training plans. Okay, so if you stick to a certain training plan, it's going to get you results. And when you're dieting, I think seeing that visual change in yourself or seeing that progress is going to really kind of keep you motivated. I mean, it does for me already. I've dropped 1.5 kilos since last week, and I'm starting to see, kind of dry out a little bit and see a little bit more definition, which is great. And for me, that's the biggest motivation. When I see myself in the mirror, I think, yeah, okay, I'm starting to look all right. And as that kind of goes through, I think that continues to motivate me. I don't know about you, Harry, what kind of motivates you?
Yeah, again, so it's almost that being satisfied with never being satisfied. So it's always that you wanted to perfect yourself. There's always bits I want to work on. There's always bits I look at myself and think, no, that needs to be better. So it's just that really, and just really wanting it. So if you're going to be motivated for something, like for me, it doesn't take a lot for me to go to the gym. Like, I enjoy being there, I want to be there. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't go. It's like anyone playing a game of football. They love football. It's probably not a chore for them. So for me, that's just it, really. Just wanting to better myself, keep going the best I can, really.
Cool. Right, Bradley, is it okay to drink a diet soda daily when on a diet, or should you keep them as a tool for when you're craving something bad? Okay, well, I am now incorporating a Diet Pepsi on my daily diet. Harry kind of frowned at me earlier and said, what is this guy doing? So with my evening meal, I'm having a Diet Pepsi. Okay? Reason being, not to actually curb my cravings as such, because I find it actually bloats my stomach up. So I drink it with my evening meal, and it kind of blows my stomach up and puffs me out. So I feel fuller for longer by having that with my evening meal. So that's what I do. Is it bad to? No. I mean, Joe previously, when he was in comp mode, he incorporated, I think it was Diet Coke with his evening meal as well.
Yeah, and sugar-free monsters, I think, as well.
Sugar-free monsters and things as well. Obviously, in terms of your caffeine, you want to limit that best you can because it will lose its effects. All right, like any kind of stimulant and things. If you're taking too much of it, it will actually lose its effects. So try and limit your caffeine intake. I'm just having pre-workout caffeine once a day, so like a coffee or something before I train, or pre-workout, whatever. I only have that once a day at the moment, so I'm limiting my caffeine intake as I kind of go through with that.
So got one from Jay Breeze as well. Should you have a rest day? As if I have a rest day, I feel so lazy. Okay, this is quite a lot of people ask as well. So I believe that to be really overtraining, it is very difficult too. I mean, if you're in a large calorie deficit, then maybe yes. But if you're getting adequate sleep, having a good amount of nutrition, staying hydrated, training well, it probably won't make too much difference if you have a rest day. Of course, it is good to have a rest day to make sure that you are rejuvenating, your muscles are repairing. For some weeks I don't have a rest day, I feel like I don't need one, and I think a lot of it is to do with in your mind, that if you really feel bad and that you really do need a rest day, maybe then take one. But other weeks, if you don't need one, it's not the end of the world. You can just do something maybe just like light, maybe some mobility, maybe some stretching, light bit of cardio, that would be fine. But to really be really overtrained and physically, that is quite a hard point to get to. And you might see some bodybuilders do it in prep, but apart from that, I don't think that you'd be at too much risk of doing that or injuring yourself.
Cool, awesome, brilliant. Okay guys, we're going to call it a night there. We've been online for probably about 30-40 minutes now. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. Obviously the video will be posted up so you can kind of rewatch it and go back through it. I also am going to put up a file which I did earlier with a few kind of points I made, so I will upload that to the group and you can see that and get all the information for that. Again, if you've got any questions, then ping us a message. We're here to help you guys and get the most out of your training and diet. Obviously, guys, if you're a fifth dimension, Harry is offering free tasters. So Harry, fire away, they're all yours.
Yeah, so if you do want a free taster, I'm offering free 30-minute taster sessions as well. I'll try and get you one when I can. So just give me a message and then I'll be able to sort you out a slot. This doesn't have to be necessarily just training. If you come to me with any questions you might have, if you've got any problems with your training, I can try and help you maybe find different exercises. Or even if you just want a 30-minute chat on how we can make your training better, that's absolutely fine. Any questions at all, feel free. You can have those 30 minutes are yours.
Cool, awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers as well.
Good night, and we'll catch up with you all soon.